Okay, Oscar lovers, we have just a few weeks before we finally learn who wins, but we want a sneak peek and we want to know right now, don't we? I'm Tom O'Neill with Gold Derby, here with Pete Hammond from Deadline and Tim Gray from Variety. And let's start with Best Picture. Tim, we're going to go to you first. Everybody in the world is picking Nomadland. Does that mean everybody in the world is a coward because it's won everything coming up till now and nobody has the guts to go to step off the ledge? Or does this mean a sweep is going to happen?
I mean, I think it's possible. It has won pretty much everything, but I also think the SAG Awards on this month have they gave the big ensemble prize to
Chicago 7.
Trial of the Chicago 7, and they're not a perfect bellwether of Oscars, but it's a way of giving people permission. It's like, look, if you want to vote for another movie, this won't be a wasted vote, because there have been movies in the past that won Best Picture without winning all the previous awards. I think Crash, I think that was true. I think Gladiator, that was true. So it happens. People do like Nomadland. I don't think this is a herd mentality. The people that I know who've seen it, most of them like it a lot. But it's not. I don't think it's a slam dunk at this point.
So, Pete, if it's not, and this is where it gets really tricky with that ranking business on the ballot, where the first five, your rank went with you for five. And I've heard you often say that, and I think we all know this and believe this, that sometimes the movie with the most number two votes wins. What if a lot of people are dutifully following the herd, putting Nomadland number one? Then what's getting the most number twos and threes?
Yeah, it's interesting. What I wrote right after the SAG Awards was the example of 2005, where Brokeback Mountain actually won everything, and then I factored in BAFTA and DGA, which haven't happened at that point, and that it will win there too. Nomadland. And so you have an exact thing. The only difference was Brokeback was a winner at WGA and Nomadland was ineligible. So that's a wash on that. Otherwise, you have the example of Crash winning that cast award at SAG. And I remember Tom Ortenberg telling me at the time, he was at Lionsgate, all I need is one of these to burst the bubble. I need one. He got it. And it exploded after that, because I think Tim is absolutely right. They need an excuse not to vote for what they think is going to be the winner, because everyone likes to go with a winner. Now they have an excuse. It got all these headlines, back in the game, game changer. Let's see. It's not always 12 out of 25 or whatever times the cast thing has gone. It doesn't always fit, and recently it hasn't been a factor much at all. But I do think it gave some hope to Netflix with Chicago 7, because people really like that. To answer your question, is it going to get a lot of number twos for those who feel with the herd mentality of Nomadland? Is it that movie, or is Minari that movie? And I think both benefit from those twos and threes. And I do think Chicago 7 gets a lot of number ones, because yes, I've talked to many that like Nomadland. I don't feel a passionate vote for it, right. But I do know that they like it and they feel like that's going to win. And, there's sort of that inevitability. But sometimes emotion can trump things. And for those who are looking for an excuse, and I've talked to many who have fell asleep watching Nomadland. So, that faction is out there. I don't know how big it is. So I don't know, in other words, if Nomadland gets a ton of number one votes, but then gets a bunch of, 6 and 7s and things with the less enthusiastic crowd, will that factor in what you're saying, that a number two can be all the difference? I do think it's possible. I'm still saying Nomadland, if you're going to bet in your pool.
Yes.
That's the smart.
If I had to bet money, I would bet Nomadland. But if I'm merely wagering my reputation, then I want to go with something else. And my something else is a promising young woman. Now, I may not have the guts. We still have 2 weeks or so to go before we have to make our final predictions. But boy, A Promising Young Woman was far, far better than I ever thought it would be. It had the rooting factor. It had the parasite factor, the rebellion against the man, and and that sense of rebellion and defiance drives so much marketing. And it has all the nominations you need. It has editing, it has screenplay, directing, acting, picture. We often figure on the best picture needs all those tea leaves. There are so many exceptions to these rules lately, of course. It's hard to say, but do either of you guys think there is a chance that A Promising Young Woman could win Best Picture?
Sure, there's a chance, but I'm going to predict that Tim doesn't think so.
I mean, I had a lot of trouble with that movie, but I do know that a lot of people love that movie. And I feel like with 8 nominees, you're never going to get a consensus where everybody loves your movie. I think maybe Schindler's List may have been the last movie that everybody loved. Yeah. But I do, Promising Young Woman was not my favorite, but there are passionate people about that. So I think it's a possibility. I personally think Nomadland is the front runner, and Minari and Chicago 7 are the possible upsets. But Promising Young Woman, I'm telling you, stranger things have happened. So because again, some people are very passionate about that movie.
I very much see that Chicago 7 could pull off a crash-like victory.
It could, yes.
Winning picture, editing, and original screenplay. However, I think original screenplay really is probably going to go to Promising Young Woman, my guess. Mm-hmm. And that's where WGA went. So without that, do we have a spotlight year where just 2 wins can happen? Which, until Spotlight was The Greatest Show on Earth, only one. But both of those instances, Spotlight and Greatest Show, had a writing win and a picture win. So without that writing win, I think what to look for, in other words, on Oscar night is who wins in that original screenplay category.
Which will come early in the evening.
Yeah, maybe. And that, I told the Spotlight people, because I knew I saw them the night before, the producers, they were excited. I said, don't get depressed when don't get excited, number one, when you win the first award of the night, because I knew their screenplay category was first. I said, you're going to win. Oh, great. And then you're not going to hear your name again until the very end, until Best Picture. And that's going to be, going right back to 1952 with Greatest Show on Earth when that last happened. But I think that's what's going to happen. And they go, oh, okay. And so don't despair. It's a different academy now. It's fractured. It's all over the world now. There's all kinds of factors and different groups voting with their own thing. This could be split. And with this numerical system for Best Picture, that's why we've had a directing picture split 5 times out of the last 10 years. That was unheard of. So anything can happen, Tom, anything.
No, I mean, I totally agree with everything Pete said, but it seemed like for years there was a certain pattern to the Oscars, and it was
there were many patterns.
Yeah, I mean, including the film that won the most nominations would win Best Picture.
Right, and then the longest film often, and Thompson and I once took running time for all the Oscar nominees for like 20 years, and usually the longest movie won. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was, and it was like, if you place your odds, you look at history and what history has proven. But I feel like Oscar history in the last 10 years has been so unpredictable that to use the old cliche, anything can happen. But I do think that's true with this year's Oscars. And again, the pandemic, don't know how much that's going to affect people, staying at home. The longest Oscar season in the history of the world. It's really, because I do think sometimes if the Oscar vote were held today, it might get different results than if it's held 10 days from now.
I agree with that.
It's held, so we have a few days. This season goes on forever and ever and ever. And, everything that happens, people speculate. We'll see. I don't think it's normally I would say, looking at the statistics and the precursors, I would say this is definitely Nomadland's to lose. But it's not, that's not a movie too that plays so well on your television screen if you're
That's a
lucky
good
enough to
point.
know how to cast it onto your big screen TV Academy voters, or watch your screener, because it was still eligible to send out screeners this year, which I think is a mistake, by the way, that the Academy is getting rid of that, because a lot of people
Yeah.
in the Academy know how to do that and are used to watching it, and at least you can do that and watch it in a decent way. But if you get distracted during that movie, which demands your complete attention, it's
Mhm.
pacing and everything else, and it's beautifully made, um, then it's over for you. And I think the people that I've talked to that don't like it sort of blame that, and they may have gotten distracted or just didn't pay attention that you would in a theater. And so it's a problem for a movie like that. And we'll see if that, I think Chicago 7 plays just fine, at home. And even Minari with the small family story, but that one too demands some attention because it is paced deliberately, and has some subtitles. So I recommend theaters for that. Promising Young Woman, I think, plays well everywhere, in a
Yes,
theater.
but it
On
seems like a commercial movie. That's
Yeah,
why I have my doubts about it winning Best Picture, because it doesn't have that pretension that the others do. But let me pose this question. Somebody we know, very prominent in this business, said to me, and I believe she's right. She said, if the Oscars had just been held 2, maybe 3 weeks earlier, a year or two ago, Roma would have won. And I
no,
believe that was true.
that was not true.
You don't
Yeah,
believe that?
no,
No, talk to
I'm
Tony
with Pete.
Angelotti, who was handling that, and Universal actually did a study afterwards and found that the international voters actually voted more for Green Book
Oh,
in their
wow.
survey than Roma. A lot of people presume that international vote absolutely swears to it that the Green Book won considerably. And as you know, Tom, I had predicted it would win that screenplay award. I
Yeah.
knew the strength of that movie, and Tim
That
was
was,
the other one. We talked about it that
Yeah.
year. We predicted it in advance, and we were both vilified on a panel we were on just before the Oscars.
Yes, we were. But again, I think what Pete is bringing up is a good point. Is that there's a big difference between the press and the Oscar voters, because the press gets very excited, media people, the predictors, they get very excited about certain candidates, and they're blown away when the Academy doesn't follow this. But it's the Academy voters is just a different group. It's like you're surprised that Maine and Hawaii voted for different candidates for the presidency. It's like, look, they're two different voting groups.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
actually, Green Book had a lot of things going for it. It had
yeah,
won at the Golden Globes. It had won at the
yeah,
Producers Guild. It won at the National Board of Review. It actually followed the exact same trajectory as Driving Miss Daisy, almost. In winning the exact same kind of awards going up there. It was not, that Roma needed 2 more weeks. Roma was out there with a huge advertising campaign and everything going for it. It was going to do what it was going to do. Again, I think that film probably hurt watching it on screeners rather than on screens. And at that time, we didn't even have a pandemic forcing that. But nevertheless, I disagree with. I think Green Book generally won, and it's such a whipping boy. I just don't understand that. It's such a beautiful movie and an inspiring film. I've always
but
been
see,
a fan.
yeah, I really like the film too. But again, the media, because I truly believe that rivals of Green Book were stirring up this thing, saying, oh, it's another white savior movie.
Right.
But it's not. In fact, the white character is the one who learns from the black character. He doesn't teach him what to do. But again, there was a big difference. But I also feel like with Green Book and Roma and Social Network a few years earlier were movies that everybody admired. I mean, they just admired it. But Green Book and King's Speech, which won, is people loved it. It's like it made them laugh, it made them cry. And I think
Emotion.
Roma, huh?
Emotion. That's it.
Yeah, can't go
Emotional.
wrong with emotion. I mean, I feel like, I really admired Roma, but it didn't make me laugh or cry. And so, I think that's a factor. And again, Chicago 7, I think does make you laugh and cry.
It
So,
does, and it has that real. And they've started to change their TV ads to show Eddie Redmayne right at the end of the last ad I saw, starting to read off the names. I think if I were them, I'd do a whole ad just with that scene, because that reminds you of the emotional
Yeah.
power of that movie. And I've always said that emotional trumps everything when it comes to many Academy voters.
Yeah.
I agree with that. That's how Moonlight won as well.
Yeah.
But yet we have this consensus among all of the pundits that Nomadland's director, Chloe, is going to win, hands down. And that was not just assumed, but signed, sealed, and delivered right at the festivals when this movie debuted. And everybody's in our little pundit circle said the same thing was, all right, wait, well, it might lose Best Picture, but she's still going to win. Why did everybody know that?
It's sort of been written in the stars that this is a year for a woman. It just so happens there's two women that are nominated. The DGA, everyone expects to go, especially after the PGA went with Nomadland. Everyone would be shocked, if anybody other than Chloe were to win that. It just seems to be there, but it doesn't take away from the scenario of a Chicago 7 like we've been talking about winning. And we should mention Judas and the Black Messiah also doesn't have a directing nomination, doesn't even have a major directing nomination at DGA either. So it's a little longer climb for that to win probably, but that is the only Black themed film in the Best Picture race. And that could factor too, because there were so many good ones here. So don't discount that movie pulling off a shocker too. But I do think Chloe, and I think Tim probably would. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I do think after last year when Greta Gerwig was not nominated, there was a lot of talk about the Academy not nominating women and stuff. So there was a kind of a hope that women would do well. But I also think when people saw Nomadland, it's like, her attention is not a gift. It's not like they were scrambling to find a woman director. It's like what she did was really extraordinary, and to cast a big star, Frances McDormand, who's won 2 Oscars, and have her interacting with people who'd never acted before. It was an act of daring, and that movie could have gone wrong in so many ways. But it's just smart. It's like she set a mood and she stayed with it. She was very faithful to her vision, and I think people are really impressed by her work. I don't like to bet money on Oscars because I'm just too much of a cheapskate. If I lose $5, I'm depressed all day. But if I bet money, I would bet money on Chloe Zhao because she just did a great job.
She also has that international hook too. She's Chinese, so you have a lot of voters out there, and you have the controversy that is there that this film may not play in China, that they're upset about comments that she made, that Nomadland, which is about America, doesn't criticize America really for all these people dropping out, that it's a rosier vision of this country than what she had, what they unearthed, what she said about her own country, China, which pissed them off. So now they're, pulling the Oscars from Hong Kong and different things. And people assume it's all because of this controversy over that. So you look at all those different factors going in internationally that could help her. This movie doesn't get into the politics that you might think, the Trump era and why these people did what they do in Nomadland. So it's a much safer kind of thing to look at.
It doesn't blame anybody, but it does reach you emotionally in a different way. It doesn't have that rooting factor thing that Green Book has, and Chicago 7 has with when they get to the end of the courtroom scene.
And remember, Chicago 7 behind it is Steven Spielberg, King of Hollywood.
That's true.
I mean, it was his idea to make this movie 14 years ago. DreamWorks is the production entity. This movie has that kind
Aaron
of
Sorkin at his prime.
Royalty in Hollywood that is also a factor rooting for it there, and their power in getting out their vote. So we'll see.
The toughest race of all, at least the most interesting, is Best Actress, of course. You could really talk yourself into any one of these nominees. We all talked ourselves into Frances McDormand early this Derby season, assuming that she would ride the wave with the film. And of course, that could happen. And they really do love her over there at the Academy. But suddenly there has been, in the last month, a surge for Carey Mulligan, and it's been really, really big. And Carey meets the kind of credential of Jennifer Lawrence, might be a good example. The year she won, when there was a lot going on. It was her moment. It was the ingenue. It was the rising star of Hollywood and being crowned at the Oscars. That's certainly a factor, but also the role is just so delightfully shocking. And then we have Viola Davis, who pulled it off at SAG, just when some people were being naysayers about that. But she's done that before. She won for The Help, remember? And then she ended up losing to Meryl Streep, wasn't it? I believe. And that
it might be.
Andra Day is a factor here, as we know that they love these biological singing roles, as we learned with
actually biographical, not biological.
Biographical. Thank you. And I'm thinking, of course, of La Vie en Rose, Marion Cotillard. That surprised a lot of people. And then we've got Vanessa Kirby, who seems to be low on the charts. But
until she wins at BAFTA, don't forget she's British, and
true.
We only have Frances McDormand and Vanessa Kirby in the Oscar group that can compete there to give us 4. If one of those two win, 4 different of the Oscar nominees with the 4 major awards we look towards. So
I mean, Tom said at the beginning, this is a tough race, because I think for a long time it just seemed like it was Frances McDormand and nobody else, because nothing else had come along. And then Viola Davis came in, and then when Carey Mulligan, people started seeing that film, it seemed to me the press kind of made it, it's down to Carey Mulligan and Frances McDormand. But I think Viola Davis's SAG win made clear, it's like, hey, don't discount this woman. This is not a 2-person race here. And so I think Viola Davis is a distinct possibility.
And we at Gold Derby spoke to one Academy member yesterday who plans to vote for Andra Day.
Yeah, well, she's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bigger mountain to climb for Andra Day and Vanessa Kirby. It's their only nomination for that film, which means they have to watch it. Whereas more likely, since everybody votes on everything in the Oscars, that these other films, Promising Young Woman and Ma Rainey's not even up for Best Picture. So as it was at the Best Cast thing for SAG, there's a difference there in terms of Viola. And Frances is in a Best Picture nominee too. I just don't think they want to vote for her this year. I think they feel enough. If we give it to the movie, she gets it too. She was a producer. And so I don't think there's that heat. I've never thought that this year for her, and it's a low-key performance.
It's very
low-key. So the others are much bigger, are shocking. Carey Mulligan is doing things you've never seen her do, and so there's that. Viola Davis is terrific here, a role she didn't even want because she didn't think she could play it, and she plays it, but she doesn't do her own singing. And so, we can discount it there, that it's not Andra Day, who not only shows she can act on her first time out, but does that singing that's so brilliant. And maybe it's also a chance to honor Diana Ross finally.
But, Rami Malek really didn't do his own singing either.
That's Rami Malek didn't do his own singing.
Right.
And it didn't hurt him. And so I'm just saying there are factors here when you're weighing the level of the performances competing against each other. Andra Day and Viola can definitely be compared. They're both playing iconic Black singers in the 20th century, and so let's compare them. And one of them sings and the other one doesn't. They're both brilliant performances, no question about it. But I'm just putting myself in a voter's mind. How do I look at all this? I don't know.
I know.
Well, I'll tell you, back to your point that Vanessa Kirby and Andra Day represent the only nomination for their film. Because about a week ago, I was talking to some Academy members, and Academy members do take their voting very seriously. They do their homework, and I talked to some that said, a couple of them said, I haven't seen the movies that got just one nomination. I'll get around to those.
Yeah.
And again, that's there's an incentive to see a movie that has 6 nominations. With one, you think you'll get to it. But I do think before voting closes, a lot of people will get to the Billie Holiday, United States versus Billie Holiday. And if you see that movie, you can't help but be blown away by her performance. So it's pretty rare. I was trying to think of acting winners who won as the only nomination for their film. And it goes back to Jodie Foster.
Oh, I know. Christopher Plummer only had one win for his movie.
Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, there's been several over the years. Cliff Robertson, others that won with just one. And there's different factors that propelling those movies at the time. So, it's interesting in terms of that. We just have to trust people, if they vote, that they've seen everything.
But the voting is so inconvenient with the streaming and the confusion about media and all of that, that it does not bode well for movies that have, the Oscars don't bode well for movies that do not have multiple nominations.
And by the way, it's not just the lead actress, supporting actress this year is like crazy.
Okay, we'll go there. Explain it. How does Amanda Seyfried start as #1 in our odds for months and then all of a sudden drop down to last place?
I don't know, but I mean, maybe it's finally a chance to give Marion Davies something that Hollywood. I'm not going to discount her. I loved her in that, and it's glamour, it's Hollywood, it's playing a movie star and having to actually do scenes. And Marion Davies was very funny, a great comedian. And bring that to life too, a challenging thing that actors certainly would notice. Whether the whole Academy does, I don't know. Glenn Close, of course, the overdue scenario, we've talked to death. The reteaming against Olivia Colman. I had to turn in my predictions for our awards line last week in advance, even before the SAG Awards, and I predicted that Sung Yoon would win the Oscar. And I now, even after SAG, that didn't surprise me there. And I think she will win. I think it's the role. I think it's a charmer. And I think it's a way of giving a very well-liked movie like Minari a win.
I think that could very well happen too. And she is my current #1, but I've been changing my mind quite often. Tim, where do you stand? Best supporting actress.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Wait, see, Pete, how do you pronounce her name?
I think it's Yoo Young Yoon, something like that. But the Korean it's the opposite. It's confusing the way she might pronounce it. When I interviewed her, she said, "Just call me YJ."
Yeah,
and so.
Yeah, that's how I think of her, as YJ. But I remember when that movie first started screening, people were saying, "I God, she's really good." But I mean, that's an uphill battle because it's it's a little film. It's mostly in Korean, but it's like I feel like her momentum has increased in the months since then. And I think with Amanda Seyfried is. She was the front runner because there was kind of nobody else for a while. But I still think I always felt like she would get nominated, and Glenn Close you can't go wrong with. But I do think YJ is the front runner here.
But I think that Glenn Close is still in on this race, and I think she's still in a big way. When she came close to winning last year, we presume. Remember, The Wife only had one nomination. And there's some, and everybody knows that she's so overdue factor. And when that becomes just ingrained in everybody's head, as it did with Kate Winslet. She ended up winning for the wrong movie, presumably. At least they thought so.
It didn't help Lauren Bacall.
That's true. That's true. But I think Glenn Close can still win supporting actress. I think she's really in this race. I switch back and forth between YJ and Olivia Colman. Olivia Colman, she's such the empathy you feel for her is so powerful. And they did just give her an Oscar recently, which means they really, really like her, in the words of Sally Field. Who's number two if YJ doesn't take it?
I think it's like I said, it's a wide open race. It could go any which way. The Father is a Best Picture nominee. Minari's a Best Picture nominee. But Hellbilly Elegy isn't. So Glenn Close oddly finds herself in the same position she was in with The Wife, a movie essentially it has two nominations, one for makeup, but there's true. That. Mank is the Best Picture nominee, and who am I leaving out? One other.
Borat.
Maria. Yeah, she's not in a Best Picture nominee, and she's such a unique case. I mean, really going toe to toe with Sacha Baron Cohen cannot be easy, and people look at that, and then having to pull off a scene with Rudy Giuliani and The First Take, and being comically brilliant in this movie, but also kind of touching. It is a father-daughter story at its heart too, and she came out of nowhere to do this and pull this off. And so don't discount her either. I mean, if people look at the measure of difficulty here, as unlikely as a performance that comes out of the whole improv, reality world here has never won, but that doesn't mean there's not a first time.
And it's rare that comedic performances win, but they do sneak in.
But not so much in that category as I famously predicted Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, well, that was brilliant. Yeah.
Well, when I did my little survey of Academy members, and they all predicted what they thought would win was all these other people, Vanessa Redgrave, on and on, Judy Davis. And I said, what did you vote for? Oh, Marissa Tomei.
I mean, just as a side thing, my cousin Vinny was on TV last week, and I watched it again. I said, Marissa Tomei is brilliant in that.
But it's a lead role, and she was in supporting.
When people acted surprised that she won, it's like she's just great in it. So
I know. They acted surprised because the pundits said all these other things, and they tend to believe, even the Academy members, that was my point there, they believe this stuff when they see it, and but that's not necessarily what they're voting there, and you got to sort of pick up on that. And so it's interesting.
Best Supporting Actor, we have Daniel Kaluuya out front. Sacha Baron Cohen won at SAG, and that was the performance in the film, I think, that wowed a lot of us. It was a dramatic role. He was still a snarky, defiant, bad boy, Sacha Baron Cohen. But boy, he really, really delivers a punch.
Well, he didn't win at SAG. Daniel Kaluuya won at SAG.
Oh, that's right, Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah.
So has Sacha won anything?
No, Daniel. Well, he won. They won the ensemble.
The ensemble,
but Daniel Kaluuya has won everywhere. He's by far. I think the men it's kind of decided. I mean, if you want to skip over this, it's Chadwick Boseman and Daniel Kaluuya. Even Carey Mulligan. Yesterday, when I was talking to her for the Santa Barbara Film Festival, she said, I wrote him a fan letter, Daniel Kaluuya. We were talking because he had done SNL the week before. I wrote him a fan letter. I just think he's unbelievable, actors really like what he can do. And that's a showy performance too. And that always helps.
Well, let me ask you guys, because I don't particularly believe the theory that if there's two actors from the same film, they'll cancel each other out. People always bring that out as if it's a fait accompli, as if it's a fact. As we know, there have been exceptions, but I don't think that Lakeith Stanfield in that category hurts Daniel Kaluuya's chance. Do you?
Not at all. I think it's amazing that he got in there because they campaigned him as lead.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any campaign on his behalf since the nominations. So it's a low-key thing if they're campaigning him at all. or if it's his decision just not to get out there on the circuit. But I haven't seen him very visible since then. So I don't know that also would lead us to think Kaluuya has this in the bag between the two of them. I thought Lakeith was amazing. It's the trickier role. It's really hard to pull off. I think that's why actors recognize that. They know these things. But now you've got the whole Academy voting, and Kaluuya is in all the clips and everything. And he did SNL playing up 12 different characters. He's just a very talented guy. We remember him from a couple of years ago with his nomination for Get Out. He's got it all going for him here. And so I think.
Why, Tim, do we have, and I mean, overwhelmingly, we at Gold Derby among the experts have Nomadland winning adapted screenplay. That there's the dialogue, you could argue, is very sparse here and there in the movie. There's enormous stretches of silence, and the dialogue is not necessarily the thing that jumps out at you so memorably, except the one line, "See you down the road." But it's up against movies that have been plays like The Father and One Night in Miami, dramatic works that One Night in Miami.
One Night in Miami.
Right. I'm mixing up my title set. So we have these talkie movies up against Barat's also in here as a comedy. Then there's The White Tiger. So why are we all just assuming Nomadland will win here? I want One Night in Miami personally to win. So I'm wondering if anything else has a chance here.
I mean, I do think One Night in Miami has a chance. I mean, I think Nomadland is getting deserved credit because if you read the book, I mean, there's not really a plot there. It's a series of incidents, but again, the movie is so well structured that it manages to look both well structured and unpredictable. So it's great. But One Night in Miami is, it has dialogue, it has a shape to it, and it's a play, and photographed staged plays don't usually come off well, but I think that movie comes off really well. It's basically a 4-character movie, and you get to know each of those 4 characters. So I do think that's a strong possibility. Don't, Pete? What do you think?
I do, but I think the fact that it's not a Best Picture nominee, and the only other nominations it got really were for Leslie Odom Jr. Hurts it. I think traditionally an adapted screenplay of a Best Picture front runner is going to win. They're checking that off, and the screenplay usually goes with that. So I just don't see the alternative to Nomadland really here, except for The Father, which basically also was a play, as you say, and it was very subtle. And subtlety doesn't always win either, but it shows they liked it enough. I would say Borat, which won a WGA award, where Nomadland was ineligible because it was not made under union rules, doesn't tell us anything. And how many movies have won screenplay that had 9 writers getting Oscars? That's rare. And a lot of people look at that and go like, what did they write? When you talk to them, it was all written. The whole thing was planned. It's actually brilliant. But I don't know that people understand that, and it's only dealing with 2 nominations. And it was previously nominated and didn't win for the first Borat. So I go with Nomadland just with the statistics.
But you think I do think you made a good point about The Father, because The Father is another one. It could have gone wrong in so many directions, but it's like a little feat of magic that movie works as well as it does.
Brilliant, brilliant. And that might be my number 2 there, strictly because they clearly liked it, and if they do understand that it is told through the eyes of this man slipping into dementia, and there are subtle changes all through that, as there were in the play, but it was made cinematic by a first-time feature film director. It's something to applaud for sure.
Yeah,
they took a big creative chance and really delivered. Original screenplay, Pete, you said earlier that My Promising Young Woman has a chance. There's some promise here that it might win. It actually is our front runner by an overwhelming number among the experts. 21 of them have it winning. And then Aaron Sorkin's Chicago 7 at number 2. Nothing else gets any votes among the experts. Why do they accept Promising Young Woman as a work of language art, which is in effect giving a gold prize to a screenplay, is when I keep worrying as a fan of this film about it being too commercial and being too and not being pretentious enough.
Tim, I know it's your favorite.
No, I mean, it's not my favorite, but I do feel like Emerald Fennell. I don't want to disparage her, but she is. I don't want to say flavor of the month, but she is the woman of the moment. I mean, there's a certain buzz about her. It's like, most people hadn't heard from her a year ago, and this is a very flashy introduction to her. I love Aaron Sorkin, but I also feel, as you were saying about with Frances McDormand, there's a kind of a sense, well, he doesn't need it. He's won awards, he's done everything, and she's a newbie. I personally wouldn't vote for it, but I think a lot of people will.
I think you look at the title of the category, Best Original Screenplay. What's more original than Promising Young Woman in the era of Me Too? Another big factor is she's an actor. And, making her first film and being so successful, that is the biggest branch in the Academy by far. Actors will look at this and say, see, I can do this myself. I don't need writers because I can do this. And she proved that there as well. She won the WGA. There are so many factors for this. Best Picture nominee. And I just think Trial of Chicago 7, which needs this, also is based on transcripts, the courtroom sequences and things like that. So it's not as original, in the definition of original, as Promising Young Woman.
Yeah. Let's jump down to a couple final categories here. International film. Another round has its director up in the main best director category, so it has some advantage there. Also nominated Quo Vadis, Aida, Collective, The Man Who Sold His Skin in Better Days. A lot of people like Aida best, or Collective, that seems to be.
Oh, God, that doesn't belong in this category. They should make a rule. Choose your category. If you're a documentary, you belong in documentary feature, and you're eligible for Best Picture. If you're international film, it's got to be, this not a documentary, because we already have a documentary category. This is the second year in a row this has happened. I would put Collective dead last in this category.
Oh, wow, okay.
I mean, this is the first time I've disagreed with you today, because I think it's like do what you want, because I personally feel, I wish, a documentary has never been nominated for Best Picture. And I think it's because people see it as a kind of a otherness. It's like, oh, well, it's a different kind of a movie. But I feel like the documentaries this year are just unbelievably good. And so I'm all for all the attention it gets. And Collective is really a knockout at so many levels. I think for the international film, another round is it's an audience favorite. I mean, it's got everything going for it.
And a directing nomination too.
And a directing nomination. And I think probably more people have seen that than the others. But I do feel all 5 of those are really good films. And there were a lot of ones, like A Son, that are great, that weren't nominated.
Yeah, it could have been instead of Collective. Quo Vadis, Aida, The Man Who Sold His Skin. These are great movies. Another Round is a very original film. Yeah. And Thomas Vinterberg is way overdue, and the directors recognize that too. And it was a movie made during a tremendous personal tragedy for him. His daughter was killed in a car accident 4 days into shooting. He pulled off something that I think is a very human movie. I was blown away by Quo Vadis, the Bosnian film, extraordinary. And I love The Man Who Sold His Skin, very original.
Yeah.
I think between the three of those, you have a really strong category. I haven't seen the Hong Kong film yet. So
let's go back to documentary, because Collected is nominated here too. Pete's favorite movie.
no, it's not that it's not my favorite movie. I said it doesn't belong in that category.
I know. So we have for documentary feature, the favorites seem to be My Octopus Teacher, Crip Camp, but yet Time has from Amazon has a strong lead at Gold Derby, has had a strong lead for a long time, and but it's getting chipped away by Octopus, which is moving up the ladder, or how else you might say it metaphorically. Octopus is going to climb a ladder. What's going to happen here? Documentary.
I seriously, I feel that's a great question. I mean, when I saw Crip Camp, I thought, well, this is the winner. I mean, it's just because it's got everything, and it's smart, it's funny, but so many good films have opened since then, documentaries. I still kind of think Crip Camp is going to win, but it could be My Octopus Teacher, it could be Time, Collective. Wait, what am I missing?
The Mole Agent.
The Mole Agent, terrific.
That's
a great movie.
Yeah.
These are all, good movies. The Mole Agent, when I saw it, I thought it was like written. I didn't think it was a documentary. And in fact, I interviewed the filmmakers and I said, all right, you got to tell me, I would be shocked if Hollywood hasn't come a calling to do an English language remake, narrative picture of we just finalized the deal. We haven't announced it yet, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's an amazing story of this guy answering a want ad and going into a home there in Chile and, going undercover to find out something about this nursing home. And he's in his 80s. He's coming to the Oscars. He's never been on a plane before. It's got a great backstory. Octopus Teacher, however, is the emotional hook. Oh my God. There is something about that film that has caught on, and that's why. The interesting thing is it's on Netflix, and they are pushing in a bigger way, I think, Crip Camp, because it's from the Obamas, who won last year in this category. That's a very important thing. So it'll be interesting to see, even within Netflix, where those votes go. But I do think My Octopus Teacher is one that could absolutely sneak in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think this points up the kind of arbitrariness of Oscars, or how much fate has a hand in it. Because I feel like in a different year, any one of those five would be a great documentary winner. It's like the Academy would be proud to have any one of those five as a winner, but they just happen to open up against four other really great ones. So, I honestly don't know what's going to win, but for me, this is like one of the strongest categories this year.
I do agree. Yeah, very strong category.
We're facing a year where the public hasn't talked about. We wonder whether Oscar voters have seen these movies. What about America? Which is still on lockdown in many areas against this pandemic. So we're dealing with an Oscars that a lot of people haven't seen the movies, including the voters, as we know. Hopefully they'll have caught up by the time they cast their ballots. And it's this is just like an Oscars we've never seen in so many ways. But it comes down to a very interesting question. And that is, does that show exist really as an acknowledgement of the best of cinema? Or does it thrive because of this spectacular red carpet covered by the kings and queens of Hollywood dressed in their best? Or is it just I win, you lose game among the Hollywood titans? When you strip away everything else and you just get down to the awards, and lose a lot of the glamour, we'll learn a lot this year, won't we?
Yeah, I think it's always been. I just did a big Q&A thing with someone on analytics on the film industry and with all the polling and things. And one of the things that he polled was the Oscars, and found that, and it surprised me. He said that brand has no problems. He says it stands for something it's always stood for, and tradition. And you win an Oscar, people have it ingrained. That's a big deal. And that's important. That's like a Nobel Prize. That's like a Pulitzer Prize. That is like the best of the best, and has the longest tradition in that. So no matter what happens ratings wise, or if they've seen any of these films and things, the Oscar itself, he explained, is a brand without a problem. It's not being challenged in that way as the prime award you can receive.
I love this year, by the way, because not only do we get to actually talk about the awards, it's so full of suspense. We're in the middle of an international drama, no less, where nothing less than life and death is on the line. And we are seeing the ultimate reality show, which is the Oscars, where anything can happen among the most glamorous people in the world. And it's really thrilling. It's something that we've never seen.
But I also think I did a column a few weeks ago about the kind of divergence between the public and Oscars, because for many decades, the Best Picture winner was the #1 film at the box office that year. And a lot of them are unexpected. I mean, Best Years of Our Lives was #1 at the box office. Lawrence of Arabia, West Side Story. You don't necessarily think of those as box office pleasers, but in the last 20 years, the Best Picture winner averaged being not #1 at the box office, but number 47 at the box office. So it's like that there is a discrepancy there. But I also think, to what Pete said, the name Oscar carries a cachet, because I mean, I hear people talking, and saying, oh, he's going to get a nomination. And they're talking about the Oscars. They're not talking about any of the Guild Awards. It's like he should have won. And it's just understood that you're talking about Oscars. And I also notice in advertising, I mean, there was some television movie, I can't remember what it was, but Ellen Burstyn was in it. It came out about 2 years ago. And it was like Academy Award winner Ellen Burstyn. And it's like, that was like 1970, what was it, 73, 74?
74, yeah.
74. But so after all these years, Academy Award winner still carries cachet.
And in your obit too, it doesn't say SAG Award winner.
Yeah.
It doesn't say Oscar and Golden Globe winner. It's if you're an Academy Award winner, if you're an Academy Award nominee, that is your first name going forward. Academy Award nominee, Carey Mulligan. That's how people are going to refer to you in so many ways. That hasn't changed. And so I think this analytics guy is absolutely right on the money, that no matter what they want to do in complaining about it and saying they're this or that, and everyone's got an opinion and it's horrible and no one's going to watch, and I'll watch reruns of Young Sheldon instead. Whatever they say, they don't mean, because in the end, Oscar is the litmus test for.
But see, I think with a lot of people in the public, I think they know the name Oscar, they respect the name Oscar, but I don't know that that's enough to make them watch the show.
It isn't.
Yeah. So I do think there is a discrepancy there. First off, because, it's like, if you don't want to sit through a 4-hour show, you can watch the acceptance speech on YouTube within 24 hours.
Different time. It's a different era.
Yeah. So it's I think people still like and respect Oscar, but I don't know that they necessarily feel a need to embrace it. I
agree with you 100%. I don't think this is a recipe for getting ratings. I think the ratings are going to plummet like they have for every other award show. But that doesn't matter, because people consume this kind of thing in a different way, the same way they consume late night talk shows in a different way. They don't have to actually watch the show to watch the show.
Yeah.
And even people like Don Misher, the producer of many of these award shows, are saying that is the future, that we'll be watching the Oscars, all these award shows more and more in these snippets across all these YouTubes and TikToks and everything else that's out there, that in effect you will have seen the Oscars, but you will not have seen it on ABC all the way through getting that Nielsen.
But they're still charging apparently $2 million a spot, for this.
Wow.
ABC is. So they're, and if they get that, that's more proof positive what I'm talking about. It's still the king. And, in terms of that, and there still is that feeling, and, we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we will pick this up one last time before the Oscars are themselves, and we'll see how many of us have changed our minds. Thanks, both of you guys.
All right.
Thanks.